to make sure the sound's okay and allow people some time to get in. Just bear with me 1 second. Let's see here. All right. I'm going to go to my page, find it. No, it's not there yet. We'll find there's 3 people in the house so far. Let's see. Here we go. 10 people. All right. Okay. Sound is. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So we got Sherry Blakesley's in the house, Janie Hodges, Francois Braun's in the house, Donna Davin, Isabella Green, Yedme Unity.
Hi, Isabella.
Anna C. Winkler Reuter, Kamara Ford, Dina Doucet, Taylor Lay. 21 people in the house and counting. We got a special show. I've never met these 2 beautiful souls. I've heard a lot about them in the last couple of days. My name is Todd Medina. For those of you who haven't been on before, this is Soul Speaks 5D, which is our primary broadcasting venue with the Soulogy Oneness Network. Let me give a little backdrop to our guests, Dina Divine and Daniel Michael, our husband and wife, in twin physical guides and multidimensional collaborators. They co-founded Love Ripple School of Ascension and Transformation with its mission to activate the heart of humanity and shift in global consciousness. In their work, they weave modern psychology, various practices such as dance, breath work, and ancient wisdom, and tools of sacred geometry for integration and transformation. Make sure you please put your link in the comments when the show's over, because I'm sure people are going to want to reach out to you. Welcome to the show, Dina and Daniel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Todd, for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were just sharing with Todd how we had some technical difficulties. We had to swap computers, and just as we were doing that, just like 5 minutes before the room and filled the room, and both Daniel and I felt this heat, and essentially knowing that we're in this like multi-dimensional space with all of you right now. So thank you so much for having us, and saying that this is the Golden Child, the Soulogy, which we're so honored to be on. I've been following you closely in the last couple of months. We had Simone Boyd and Isabella on, and I know a lot of our New York friends are on as well, watching this. So thank you for being part of this beautiful collective that you created. I was so inspired yesterday too, watching Nikki and Clan and their story, being together for 33 years. It's just really touched our hearts. We were just, we know what it is to be in watching someone being together for 33 years. It resonates really deeply.
Wasn't that phenomenal? You're getting emotional. I was like, there was a whole bunch of reasons, but just to see those 2 people in front of me and talking about her issue with that heart surgery when they were, maybe 8 years into their relationship, and then recently about the cancer, and just the way they handled it and the way that they, I don't know, it just was, I was looking at it and I'm going, oh my God, this is the divine union frequency, the Trinity frequency in the physical matter. And yeah, so it was an amazing show. They're phenomenal. I'd love to have them back on. So you 2 have come together as one, and you still retain your individuality, I can tell.
Breaks a little bit.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag. So
yeah, there's a lag.
Go ahead.
Just a bit. No, I was saying absolutely. Actually, Nikki commented on my comment about twin flames later, and he said, actually, twin flames still hold their 3 flame, which is absolutely true. There's this balance of polarities between in a divine union, and each one plays its part. We were laughing yesterday because when we're watching them, we kind of the opposite. So Nikki is, and Glenn is very much in the air, and Nikki grounds Glenn. In our relationship, it's the other way around. I'm the grounding force, fire, and Daniel is very much in the air and very much multidimensional. I am too, but I kind of turn it on and off. He's always there, and I bring him down. So it's interesting. Yeah. That element is very important. One has to do that, otherwise both will be flying and won't be able to embody it here.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And the thing about the polarities, the thing about the polarities, it's Morgan used to joke. She said, here you are, this wild text, and and proper, and that of so many. I always say I'm organic. I mean, from day one, and there's so many. I could see that in Nikki and Gwen too. I could see that. How long have y'all been together?
So we've been married. We got married at Burning Man 2016. We were just recollecting our magical wedding, and we met the year before that at Burning Man 2015. So it's been I guess 4-year ride at this point. Mm-hmm. But it feels, as you probably know with Morgan, it feels eons. It's been so accelerated for us that those 4 years really feel forever.
I think I can comment on that. It's the concept of time dilation. So as you're moving through your own experience and as you're moving through your ascension and all of these lessons to come into wholeness and share with others, events that seemingly happen in real time are experienced in this time dilation. So a week can feel like a month. A year might be 10 years. So I feel in the last 5 years, I've lived more than my entire life combined.
Yeah, I can relate to that. In the last 7 years were more than the 50 before that, like by a quantum leap. So now, were both of you guys into what you're doing together, into the metaphysical practices as a practitioners? Were y'all both into this before you met?
Yes. So for me, I was on a very much shamanic route and journey. I was besides kind of, the typical spiritual awakening that everyone goes through with learning yoga and everything else, I started practicing a modality it's called Dance of Liberation, and became a teacher, which is very much rooted in kind of Native American shamanic roots, working with earth elements, with dance, with intention. So, and my journey has been fascinating, especially, and Burning Man, I have to say, was also one of those big festivals that was a catalyst for my awakening, where I realized that, oh, wow, there's a family of people out there who speak my language, because at the time I lived in Boston and I didn't feel like I have someone to relate to. My journey started when I was 20 years old. I got initiation of Reiki in Israel. So I have a Russian-Israeli background, came to visit my parents. And then at some point, I became master Reiki, so I was very much in the energy, but it was a bit dormant until 2009. And then I went on this journey, and the journey also took me around the world several times. And the biggest, I think, awakening for me was in 2012. I was in Guatemala, in Peru, did a lot of ceremony work, and somehow also ended up getting pregnant. That whole year was just like, woo! Just when I let go of everything and of all my possessions, universe had a different plan for me. And they're like, well, here you go. So next thing I know, I'm 7 months pregnant, and life somehow brings me back to Guatemala, and I'm with this group of people who are doing mind pilgrimage to Tikal, where I actually had a past life, and just 8 months before that, I remembered I was kind of following these breadcrumbs of memories, karmic flashes, and all of that. And I guess in Tikal, I did work as a shaman back during Mayan times. And so here I am, 7 months pregnant by myself. My life kind of felt like it was falling apart. And I'm there with this group of a lot of Mayan shamans doing fire ceremonies. And just when everything felt like it was falling apart, that night I had beautiful visions. And I realized that, oh my God, I'm carrying this new life. Everyone is afraid of the end of the world, but really it's just the beginning. The beginning started at that point. And so the end of the world was really a bright new awakening for me. And also the big message I was getting, all the shamans were saying I was carrying really special energy, the frequency. Random people were coming to me on the street in New York when I was wearing a coat, and they were like, you have something special there. And then I realized I have to raise my vibration, because what I'm carrying is higher frequency than I am.
Right.
And so that's how, like, in beginning 2013, I think that's when it really kind of pops for me. And when I had my son 6 years ago, I clearly saw where we headed. And it's beautiful now that I have him in my life, constant reminder, that anything is possible. And one of them was, I realized I want a partnership that not karmic, that was weighing me down, but one that on my level, that's, has that ability to grow towards the divine. And I put my intention out there, and I literally manifested it in pretty short amount of time, I would say, in a year. Mm-hmm. So that's how I met Daniel.
So does that mean you busted the move, or Daniel did?
You can tell a story.
I'll start the story, and then I'll let her finish it. So I'll take a step back, actually, a little bit of my background.
Yeah.
I've been an empath my whole life, and so since I was a small child, I've always felt things, and I didn't always quite understand what I was feeling or what I was seeing. I've been seeing spirits since I was a child. I've been a fairly closed channel, so I would see things but not hear things. So it's been an interesting experience opening up to that, to be able to see things but not necessarily to hear them or to channel them. So I know, I've always known when a presence was in the room, but I had, up until a couple of years ago, I really had no way of understanding or communicating with them other than the light packets or information that they would put into my field. And then that would just slowly unwind. So I went through many years as what I would call an odd kid, seeing these things and trying to understand what is what, and became somewhat of a researcher, more than a metaphysician or playing in shamanic practices. Just a researcher trying to understand what is and what isn't, and came up with all of these different partial, incomplete maps of reality and theology, everything from Joshua Stone to theology and everything else in between, and they all kind of started to mesh and meld together for me. And then in my teens, my father had passed away, and I kind of went in a little bit of a dark place and literally fell back asleep. And flash forward 2012, I'm working. I had built a company, and I'm planning for the end of the world. Literally in 2012, hunkering down, buying supplies, the whole 9 yards. And I start having these dreams like every single night, and a Saint Germain starts coming to me in dreams, and I'm like, I'm like, I didn't even know who Saint Germain was, or I hadn't recalled. And he kept coming to me every night until I committed to go to Mount Shasta. So after about 10 straight nights, I'm like, all right, I better just listen and not argue back here. So I ended up on Mount Shasta during the eclipse on May 20th, 2012, and that was really my awakening. I go to sleep. I'm excited. I didn't know what I was going to expect. I go to sleep at base camp, and I wake up in a very multi-dimensional state, stumbling around, and eventually I find Saint Germain, and he looks at me, and he's standing behind a judicial like a judicial bar with a couple of other masters, and looks at me, and they all turn away from me. He goes, "Thank you for coming. Thank you for making the journey. You're only half baked. Please come back when you're done." And then poof, I'm back. So
don't you love that team? I love it.
They're tricksters, you know.
They are tricksters.
Yeah, so that's what we're learning, definitely.
So we flash forward a couple of years. Burning Man was a huge influence in my ability to open up to be with people and be myself with people and open my heart. I actually had gone to burning. I'd gone back to Mount Shasta before my burn, and it was like the mountain was trying to eat me when I went to Mount Shasta to pay homage. I left the mountain just as quickly as I got to the mountain, and ended up in a Korean restaurant where the waitress walks right up to me and says, "Oh, you were looking for the vortexes?" And I go, "Yes, actually." She goes, "Let me guess, you had a really interesting experience. You forgot to purify." So she sends me to this purification lodge, and where I spent the next day or two before I went to have a very conscious burn. And then after Burning Man, at a pool party in Reno, I'm walking towards my area where my friends and my chosen family were, and I felt this really overwhelming energy. And normally, there's subtleties in the energies, and you can read into the energies, but it was just overwhelming. So actually, I walked around away from my friends and family. I walked towards the back of the pool party, and I pulled out Palo Santo and started to smudge myself because I had no idea what was going on. And
I already know what it was.
I'll let Diana take over.
Oh, the part was that I'm having a conversation, and I was also experiencing the energy, but I wasn't understanding what was going on until I smelled the Palo Santo. And and for me, it just kind of brought me right away in that ceremonial space of like, and then I was like, WTF, who's burning Palo Santo at the pool party, Burning Man party? And when I turned around, I actually saw him in the distance. And I'm not one of these people who come up to random people unless I feel resonance. And there was this strong resonance. It was just like, who is this being? He had these feathers and all of that, but there was definitely this inner knowing that I couldn't at that moment place what is it that attracts me, that I had to interrupt the conversation, and I come all the way to the back, and I just kind of started the conversation of like, is this Palo Santo? And it was amazing because he's like, you want to clear, and the Palo Santo, so we joke, we say, I had you at Palo Santo.
That's the best.
I was going to say that.
You had me at Palo Santo.
Yes, absolutely. And but it was right away very clear the synchronicities of a few things as we were having a conversation within the 5 minutes. And the biggest thing was he asked me, he's like, when are you flying the next day? And I didn't remember the flight, but I remembered it was at 12, and it was flying through Phoenix. And without me even saying anything, he said, "You flying Phoenix JFK." He like literally read my mind, and I was just kind of, yes. and I right away felt this frequency of like, something I was like, whoa, like this is special. This is something going on here. I don't quite know what it is, but this is something here. And there was some energies that were happening that it actually told me, my higher guidance told me to walk away from what was going on that day, that I need to wait till the following day. And so when we ended up taking the cab to the airport, and we were in the airport, Dina was a little distracted by what was going on there. And at Burning Man, that a couple of nights before, I had this amazing experience where Spirit told me that I need to activate people, especially those whose hearts are closed. And it was this magical night. I had this oil, and I was just randomly just kind of go around and meet people. And Burning Man is a very kind of flow experience. You just randomly start talking to people. And then I would see where they are energetically and where they need a little bit of heart opener. And so it was like a heart opener night, and I would put this oil on my heart, and I would just do like this touch, and my spirit will help them to activate. And probably that night, I don't even know how many people attached. It was a magical night. So I felt like I need to do that for Daniel, for him to see or feel what I'm feeling, because I felt there was something there. So just as we were about to board the plane, I just did the same thing for him. And then they called to board, and he had a first flight tickets. He ran in, and I didn't know what was going on. And then as I walked in, the stewardess was like, "Oh wow, like your boyfriend, he's sitting back there. Like you already switched the seats." So he got the activation. And when I sat down next to him, he was looking at me with his like eyes of like, whoa, what's happening here? And he touched my hand, and we felt this current of energy like shooting through the plane and around, and kind of like a torus formation. And, wow. And he was like, "Did you feel that?" I was like, "Oh, absolutely."
Yeah.
And that was the moment. I mean, we had very intense, of course, flying back to New York from Nevada, but it was already that flight that there was this knowing. And Daniel actually used, I don't like labels either. He used the terminology of twin flames. Do you think we are? And I was like, I don't know. I don't want to give it a label. But the energy itself and the frequency was absolutely there when he all of a sudden was attuned and present to it. And so, they say, and throughout the years, we've been trying to figure this whole thing about twin flames, or whatever you want to call them. What is this exactly? Yeah. And we still don't have all the answers. There's a lot of theories, of course. Right. There's a theory of, the supreme energy, and then some say it's the same soul that's split in two. We don't absolutely sure. We know that we all come here as a soul family, and we have absolutely particles and fragments of that soul family. And then there are those who are near twins. The father of my child, he has very similar frequency to Daniel, and they actually have some karmic memories together. So there is that aspect of being in the same soul family. But there's something, and Daniel can talk maybe a little more, that we didn't really have this divine union until we locked in. And maybe you can talk a little more what happened, because when we came back, the energies were still very disbalanced. There was a lot of interference in our lives for us not to be together. And maybe you can talk about what happened for us to actually seal in.
I think the locking in aspect is really important, especially when you talk about divine union. You talk about the potentiality of twin flames, and like Deanna had said, I don't really like labels either, because we don't really know what is and what isn't, and we label things, we're kind of locking it into one place. And it goes back to that whole concept, which was shared with me by some friends who do neural mapping. Actually, it's partial and incomplete maps. So we have all these partial and incomplete maps. But when it comes back to the concept of divine union, twin flames, and the concept of locking in, the reason that most people don't lock in is because you have to trust that being, that person, with all of your power. And that isn't just an idea. That's the responsibility that as you merge with this being, they literally have access to all of your power, your cosmic power, and everything else in between. The ability to create or the ability to destroy. And that becomes an even more important topic as we move into this higher space of reality, into 5D. Really surrendering to that power and really sharing that power with somebody else, and knowing that they're going to create and not destroy with it.
Yeah, that's probably one of the best statements I've ever heard about these divine unions. And we've had several couples on the shows, and then of course with Morgan and I, we get into the discussion with other people about it. But I think that's what it is. I know when she first met me, it wasn't as simple as it was for you, Dina. It took her about 1.5 or 2 years, I think. But I'm kidding. But the thing is, she told me during that time that at some point when she was trying to work with me, and I was in my wounded masculine, that she had to get to the point where she had to look at me as her own wounded masculine, her own divine masculine, and had to own every part of me. And so what you had to say about the trust thing, I think that really sums it all up, because you literally do. There can be no holding back, and there's so much, like you made reference to things keeping you from being together. Things were keeping you. You had obstacles, but that's how it is. There's really you're all in, or it's all or nothing. You really don't. There's no middle ground. There's no middle ground, because that's just total chaos. I think in any relationship, really. But
absolutely, and I think for us, we have a community that has ceremonies, and I think when we came back, we signed up for a grandma ceremony, and so all this chaos was going on around us, and we still. And there was a moment where I actually walked away, because there was that level of trust that Daniel ended up violating from my perspective. So, and I was hurt in the past, and I was ready to walk away. But yet I decided this is something very special. This is what I've been calling in. So I've been, consciously calling in for this partnership. I've been working towards it. So I recognized it first because I knew what I'm calling in. So I tried, to give it another shot. And so we went into the ceremony, and it was 2 nights, and it was very powerful. The first night, actually, I think what helped is that I had this moment where I ended up going to the bathroom, and in this kind of, altered state, all of a sudden I looked into the mirror. And what I saw in the mirror was the 2 aspects of me, the masculine and the feminine. And there was this thing about my name. My whole life I've been going by Dina, but my full name is Diana. And when Daniel met me, he was calling me Diana. And I couldn't, I was like, this is my official name. I never use it. I wasn't comfortable with it. I was like, there was something with this name. So here I'm looking into this mirror, and I'm seeing myself, and all of a sudden I'm having this realization that Diana is my masculine, my powerful goddess aspect. Dina is my feminine. I'm seeing also asymmetries in my body, and they all like these pains and moods, karmic wounds and just kind of a lot of things in like my right leg, my back, all these things that all of a sudden I realized the body was giving me also the message of seeing these asymmetries. And then when I understood it, I brought it all into the heart. And then it was this beautiful acceptance of myself and acceptance of even my aspects, of my masculine and feminine energy, and who I am, and who I stand as kind of this divine goddess that, knows what she wants, and okay with her imperfections. And if anything, those imperfections are messages, powerful messages to step into my own power, into my own mastery. So that was really powerful, like acceptance of me, that I think is so important before you walk into any relationship, whether it's a divine union or anything, because that's the woundedness that keeps us not being whole. We were always trying to fill in our parts with the love of the other. But if you totally accept yourself first, then you're not looking for that. And so as we walked into the second night, it was pure bliss, because then it was acceptance of each other, this trust that Daniel talked about, but also because we were in altered state, we actually sitting across the room from each other. We consciously chose that. I was in the east, he was in the west, and it was actually this cosmic energy. I saw these visions, and this locking in, so to speak, and trust happen in very multidimensional way for us as well, of really accepting ourselves first and then accepting each other. It was really powerful.
Yes, sounds like it. Now, you two work together. You work together as practitioners. Is that right?
Yeah, we do.
Well, I was going to ask you, did that come easy, or how did that come? Whether it was easy or not too easy? How
Yeah,
did that evolve?
yeah.
And how did that evolve? In both your words, has it created a third energy?
It's a great question. So initially, I was teaching dance classes and at Burning Man and in the city, this kind of deep shamanic, blindfolded, ecstatic dances, that very powerful kind of meditation and movement. And so I was doing my own work, and Danielle, always kind of as an empath, being a helper in collaborating people, helping people to get through their levels. So we kind of been coaching separately, doing our work separately. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, this is after we already got married, we all of a sudden realized that actually when we together, it's the energies are so much more powerful. When we together, we multidimensionally much more aware. And as I was saying initially, like, Daniel is already very tuned in. For me, I feel like when I'm next to him, my empathic abilities all of a sudden go online in much more kind of amplified way. So I was like, why don't we teach together? Why don't we collaborate? And actually, I think Love Ripple is actually, like your Soulogy, is a baby that was started as my idea a long time ago, but now all of a sudden we kind of brought both of our modalities and what we knew together into a workshop setting. We kind of were playing with, and we started teaching at some festivals. It was Daniel is really good in explaining concepts. I'm very much about experiential and leading meditation and dance. So it was like a weaving that started happening between, the feminine and masculine and what we know how to do best.
Mm-hmm.
And you can talk more about it.
I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to it. At the end of the day, it's really about sharing. And as I've stepped into this, and as I've stepped into my own power and my own mastery, I've realized that I've only been able to do that by sharing with others. The more I've kept to myself, and the more I've kept, the knowledge that, that's been shared with me to myself, the harder it's been to operate in this 3D realm. So we've made a much larger effort to share this knowledge that we've obtained and with others. And that being said, one of the most important things I can share goes back to how I was initiated into this relationship. It's really the first stages of ascension and enlightenment. It's the recognition of self-love. If you can get somebody to feel their heart and remind them that they have a heart, and to learn to be compassionate to themselves and really embody that self-love, that's really the first stage of as people, and it's just a label, but enlightenment. I think people get that word really mixed up and messed up, because if I would explain it, to most average people, enlightenment is probably one of the most destructive processes a human being can go through. They have to unlearn everything that they've learned up until that point to really move past that point and to learn to love themselves in a world and in a society where we're taught that loving ourselves is selfish. Right. Once a person actually embodies that and learns to love themselves, then they're ready to actually love others and to actually understand what unconditional love really looks like in a relationship, in a friendship, as a whole.
Yeah. Now, do you find that in your relationship, through the evolution of your relationship, did it have any type of parallel at all to what was happening with the collective feminine, the collective masculine energies that were over the last 2-3 years?
Absolutely. After we met, we started meeting more and more couples that, have the same experiences. I think some of them are probably tuning in as well and sharing with us, for instance, just the other day, how, just being next to each other, the Kundalini starts rising and activating, even just like touching foreheads or being back to back. And the same experiences are happening for them. So I do see the more and more goddesses stepping into being a goddess and really feeling the power. I've been part of a lot of women's circles and goddess gatherings, and very much support us, the feminine, trust in our gifts, because I think we're here to support the masculine. And I know there are many more goddesses that kind of on the front lines sometimes than the masculine, but we are here to we connected to the earth energy, to the feminine, and we're here to lay the foundation. And then if we support the masculine, they stepping up as well. So it is happening, and it's beautiful. We've been definitely seeing that in the circles and our close relationships with friends. Yeah, and even our wedding in 2016 when we had Burning Man, the theme of our wedding was about activation of this kind of relationships. We feel we have this frequency in our field, and actually sent a picture to Morgan. We had this aura picture taken, and it's really interesting to see. Someone commented on it. It's like this white pink energy that I think when you can visually see, it's pretty cool. And I feel people who around us start getting activated, or and I've even consciously helped activate a few people to find that kind of relationship for them as well. So it's kind of naturally happens just by us awakening and being just who we are.
Yeah, it's a contagious frequency. We've had a couple of
it's a ripple effect.
Close friends, right?
Yeah.
We've got a couple of close friends that have these. I mean, ours is a fairy tale, yours is a fairy tale, but I mean, these two friends have had this separately, have had these ridiculous fairy tales. They're just like out of nowhere, and we're very aware that we were part of that in some way. Now, so, it's interesting because you're both practitioners. You practice together. You're also in a divine union, which you're obviously together. And so people look at practitioners, or they'll look at couples in divine unions, and they'll think, "Oh my God, the grass is always greener. Oh my God, everything comes easy to them. They talk to the angels and this and that." What do y'all do when the energies hit? What do you do on a personal level, and as a couple, how do you process through that stuff? Because I don't, I'd like for people to understand that we all go through it.
Start with this?
Yeah.
So that's a very, very important question. Practice promotes presence, and when the energies are hitting, it's all about. So I don't really see myself as a healer. We look at manifestation as an example. The more we try to do something, for instance, the more we try to heal, and it just becomes a circular pattern. So I like to think of myself as a calibrator or a tuner. So when energies are hitting, that's what we're doing. We're tuning in and out of those energies. I mean, if you'll notice, we have a pyramid in the background, one of about like 4 or 5 of them. Now, very interesting as a tool. Like I had said in the beginning, I'm much more of a researcher than more than anything else. If you take a pyramid and you actually look upwards at it, you'll see that it essentially looks like an antenna. And just one of sacred geometry is, in my observation, multidimensional tuning. So we use a lot of sacred geometry. We work with a lot of custom tools and crystals that we've built or worked with ourselves. We've re-engineered some very ancient technologies, ancient like tuning rods, essentially, that just help us come back to our center. So the most important thing I can kind of bring back to that is it's really about knowing when you're off your center, and then knowing how to actually snap right back into it. Because the key really is the world is coming at us, and if we're not holding our space properly, it can wash right over us like a standing wave. But the more we're holding our center, the more we're radiating outwards. In one of my first ceremonies, as an example, it felt like I was training for 100 years, touching an energy that was much bigger and greater than me, and I just couldn't hold it. So I was told to keep touching it and hold it longer and longer each time, and I kept exploding like a supernova. It was quite uncomfortable. And it took me about 1,000 times before I was actually able to hold this energy, and come to understand that what I was doing was practicing holding my own field, or my whole energy field, up and around me, so that I could learn to radiate versus feel. So as an empath, it's one of the things I train other empaths how to do, how to radiate outwards. Because the natural inclination of an empath is they feel something, whether they know what it is or not, they clench inwards so that they don't have to feel it. But when they clench inwards, or when you clench inwards, you're only inviting more of that in. So the key is really to come back to your center and then to radiate outwards, so that you're sharing yourself with the world rather than the world washing over you.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Total sense. So, in terms of, and I think that's another thing too, is that people think, oh, well, they don't have the normal issues other couples do. You know, I mean, I don't know. In your experience, is the old pattern of relationships, the old Mars Venus mentality or paradigm, is it fading away? Has it faded away all the way? Are there still aspects of that human part of the relationship?
I think it's a very beautiful question. I think that as we move through this experience and as we move into higher states of consciousness, in my own observation, awareness increases, awareness around everything. I mean, we haven't seen anybody levitate anything or teleport, but awareness around situations, awareness around events, awareness around everything increases, and along with it, communication. And communication becomes key to really growing and growth in any relationship, whether it's a divine relationship or a divine union or any friendship.
Yeah, and we also blended families. So Daniel has 2 kids and I have 1, so we have 3 kids. And we have all of them. It's it's interesting, and they're very kind of strong beings with high frequency and very, very awake. So that like adds another dynamic to our relationship and how we are as a family. And we just recently started like Saturday mornings doing classes together, and it's beautiful. His 16-year-old son just started building these crystal wands and this and that. And but of course, there's as every family, the dynamic can be challenging here and there. We still have a human experience, and we're still parents having that challenge of saying no and yes, and then within. And just between us as well. I think what Daniel said is true. Like we just quicker, even, let's say I get frustrated and angry, which happens. But I also catch myself on that emotion and that feeling, and I don't hold it. And then right away, I'm just like, wait a second, like I'm doing that. I need to work on that. Let's have a conversation about it. So it's just more dynamic, conscious relationship where we are on this, on the mission like you guys are, and for us, ascension and spiritual growth and what we're doing is very important, and our kids and our family that grounds us. So we mirrors to each other. I'm very much kind of hard on Daniel as well, and I call it as it is. And as it is for me, because if we don't challenge each other and hold that sharp mirror to each other, then what kind of growth is happening? Then it's all like, it's too rosy. There's no path forward. So in that kind of way, we're very much having human experience, but it has that of course, spiritual aspect to it, just the consciousness and awareness level of it.
And you guys, you showed me some of these tools you have. Now, do you practice daily? You mentioned practice makes perfect. Practice together? Do you meditate together? Do you commune together?
We try as much as we can. We have really busy lives. We live in New York City, and like I mentioned, we have kids. So we it's not on a daily basis that we get a chance, but we try to make that time for each other. Daniel can talk about how recently He even started a new prayer practice for himself. So, I do a lot of meditation on the go. Sometimes, like even listening to you as I'm picking up my son from school, or taking that train or ferry to New York City. And because this, I wish we were in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Very peacefully sitting on the beach, and I would just meditate all day. I have to say, but I feel we're warriors in that kind of way, because we chose to be in this very dynamic and challenging city. And and a lot of my life is around World Trade Center, and there's a lot of energy there, and that I feel like not everyone can hold it. And in some ways, I consciously realize that I need to be there, because I am, I guess, a beacon of light for what's happening in New York, because we also have to help the population in some way or another.
Yeah.
So so this kind of, I think it's just being in the flow. If I'm in the 5D flow, if I go into 3D flow and I have to do whatever I need to do, and then I come out in 5D and I consciously like radiate and beacon out my light, my frequency, then that's really part of it. And then coming back and having a little like few minutes, maybe it's not as many minutes as we want together. So we just kind of we dance in the dance between the different worlds, and I think it's a mastery of its own to be able to kind of be a snake in these different dimensions, and still it's important to be in the 3D and bring a little bit of that 5D down, and then get tuned there. So it's like I had this image the other day. One hand is out to the sky, one to the ground, and it's just like, this is what we are. We embody in it, but this is our role, and how do we do that in our daily life?
Do you receive transmissions or downloads that are specific to your relationship? Either one of you or both?
To our relationship, that's a good question. I think for us, it's just pretty much when we're together, it's unity consciousness. I've been getting a lot of transmissions lately, more connected to my higher aspects. So, for instance, the light language started coming unexpectedly in September. And actually, I know Simone is listening, and I have like big gratitude for Simone, because she actually felt that we were hiking just with her husband and Danielle, and she was like, why don't you sing? And she felt like something was there, and all of a sudden, as I started producing this voice, this frequency started coming out, and I started connecting to it and working with it recently, and it's basically my connection to my Lyrian aspect. And so this new gift started opening up recently for me. So I think we've connected last year or so, our galactic story of how we know each other even from before, but really not before we came here on Earth. And so I think our transmissions and our messages being just to really be grounded in being together and supporting each other, because it's been challenging. Abundance is one of those things. We in New York City, and then Daniel had some challenges, and so we've been playing this thing, and it can be challenging into the relationship. So it's really about staying in the flow and being being understanding and understanding that we're all in transition, and as a couple too, like supporting each other through that transition, whatever that takes, because for someone it's easier than for the other. So supporting each other is so important. That's, I think, the biggest message I've been getting. Actually, just this past January at the lunar eclipse, we did two of us did a meditation together in the pyramid, and we had the moon right above us, and that was one of the clear messages of not to hold that frustration and anger, really let it go and surrender, and just really continue holding space for this container of what we're trying to create. And because what we're doing is that's part of the collective. We're all kind of keeping that energy
Yes.
for all of us. So
Yeah.
I think that mastery is a really important concept. And what I mean by that is mastery isn't about perfection. It's about catching ourselves in the moments of imperfection, of the moments that we're not at our center. And we get better at it. We get to be better at it. And as we get better at that, at catching ourselves being off our center, we move back to our center quicker and quicker. And as you're operating from your heart, you develop a concept of active compassion towards yourself and towards others, and really start to live as a way of being ontologically compassionate towards others, truly understanding living, that all beings are doing the best they can at their current level of consciousness, and that they're all really trying, whether it looks like it or not at any given time.
Yeah. Now, you guys are in New York City. What part of New York City are you in?
We're Jersey City, so we're right across the river.
Okay. You're right across the. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I spent a few months there a couple of years ago before Morgan and I got together in the physical, and that's a heck of a place to fast track and learn to integrate. It really is. I really enjoyed it. I really did. So let me ask you. There's many missions in our incarnation, missions within the mission within the mission. What would you say? I'm just curious to know, what would you say beyond the individual's mission to itself, to themselves? What is the most important mission for each of you?
I mean, for me, myself, or for us, it's really about expansion of consciousness. But even to share with others that are listening, as they step into their evolution, into their mastery, into 5D, it's really about allowing creation to experience itself through our individual lens. And what I mean by that is not having the fear to tinker with reality or your practices, or to take them beyond the ancient traditions that a lot of these practices have come out of, to not be afraid to step onto the other side of fear.
Absolutely. And
get out of your way.
Get out of the way. Yeah. And just being more open and listening, creating a space to listen and connect to whatever guidance that's coming in. I know even my dance, I mentioned that it's a shamanic dance, but it's kind of been morphing into multidimensional dance because I've been listening, and all of a sudden I'm getting guidance from the Galactic Council, from my higher aspects. So as I'm as I'm going up my ascension ladder, so to speak, I think I'm just tuning more in, and I think there's always room to create that space to listen even more, and also ask. I think that's one thing that I think I always was like, why is it so quiet for me? Everyone kind of getting channel message, but I'm not getting anything. And I realized it's actually, there's also this law of non-interference. So if you ask, if you consciously connect, then it's going to come to you. Then all of a sudden this light language is going to, this frequency that you never even knew you're able to channel through this, communication channel is there. So actively reach out, I think, is another big message. And our mission is just to be, I think, vessels for divinity. And we don't know where this transition is going to take us and what 5D is going to look like. I think as long as we're authentic to ourselves and always have open heart, with Valentine's, it's all about having that open heart and always finding that spark of divinity and love in each other and seeing each other in that kind of way. That's all that matters. And I know we kind of finished it off, but I actually pulled some cards just before, and I just wanted to share with you, Todd. And
yes, absolutely.
I pulled cards for you, actually.
You pulled one for me.
For Soulogy, for Soulogy, because I know that's like a big mission for you and Morgan, and I very much support what you guys are doing, because that's really beautiful. It's and it's really gorgeous. So the first one, it's this card, and if you can see, It's
Oh,
it's
wow.
called initiation by air. So here you are on air, and you have this heart and these birds coming out of it. And the second card is cosmic heart, cosmic Christ. And I really think
Wow.
in this picture, this
That's
this being
that's
looks like
amazing.
and I think the message is really to keep what I was just saying, to keep that cosmic heart, cosmic Christ energy, to be open to receive that cosmic energy and keep on shining it, and continue doing what you're doing, which is creating that initiation by air, activating people through listening to these talks, and you know, just tuning into the frequency.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for everything. I would love to collaborate with y'all again. I think there needs to be more divine union frequency on the airwaves.
Absolutely.
Expressed through the air. Yeah, there needs to be. And yeah, and we'd love to get together with y'all when we get up that way. I do like that area, not to stay, but to visit. It's fine.
I don't blame you. Yeah. We'll come to Hawaii any day.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That frequency too. It's a little more masculine. You know, New York is considered a masculine city, and Hawaii is feminine. So talking about masculine, feminine, these are centers.
That's very true. That's very true. Very true. Thank you for that card reading. Thank you for the time, honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us. And yeah, Morgan and I will be in touch so we can keep the ball rolling and keep on going with this thing. And thank you everybody for joining us today. And big congratulations on your divine union and your weaving your families, blending your families. And that's a beautiful thing. I just wanted to say that because I know that's a lot of work. So
thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. Bye-bye.
Peace out, everybody. See y'all in another day.